or here's one I want to explore a little bit because I think it relates to what's going on today. A person's face is the hub for direct and intimate communication, right? That's why in Scripture it talks about face to face. When it says we come before God, Moses saw God face to face. That's speaking about this intimate kind of relationship. And this is one of the reasons, I think, why the rates of depression are skyrocketing during this global pandemic. Because I go out in the world and I can't see anyone's face, right? And this is the thing of nightmares. A faceless world is greatly unsettling. And that's because this compulsory, and I want to call it a veil, I don't want to call it a mask. Because traditionally, the notion of a mask, you wear a mask in order to change your identity, okay? A veil is there to cover your identity. And that's what these masks that we're wearing do. They're really a veil. And this compulsory veil, what it's doing is it's preventing communion. It stifles the fellowship that you experience even with strangers at the grocery store, right? Not only are they behind plexiglass, but you also have this mask that's covering up most of your face. It's interesting, in Psalm 36, it talks about people who walk around as shadows, right? These shadow people. And I wonder if this is what we're becoming. I think not just because of the masks, but just in general, this project we've been on where we're trying to construct our own identity out of essentially nothing, that it's turning us into these shadow people, and now we're dressing like it. We're starting to look like how empty and vacuous we are on the inside is now starting to be represented on the outside. And the symbolism of the ritual of everyone wearing a veil is communicating powerful meaning, whether we want to admit that or not. And while no one would deny the medical function of such masks, although we might question if in this particular case it makes any difference at all. I just saw something from British scientists who said, 20 years of studying pandemics and we still don't have any idea whether or not masks work or help very much with regards to a pandemic. It sounds like they're storming the Bastille. Do you hear it back here? There's pounding on the door, and everything will be fine. Don't worry. I'll be a shield. I'll protect all of you. But there's this, it's not just a medical function to it. There is a symbolic function to this as well that can't be avoided. This is what rituals do. They work at the subconscious level to shape our affections. And that's why religions use them, right? They are not just some primitive tool that we don't need anymore because we have reason and we can just contemplate these things and that's good enough. Every religion needs rituals. It's what, it takes these ideas that are in our mind and it pushes them down into our heart, or at least in part, that's what it does. Think about this. We enter a building and we squirt sanitizer on our hand as we enter the building. I grew up Catholic, okay? When we would enter the sanctuary, we would take holy water, right? And that wasn't a cleansing of our physical hands. That wasn't what that was about. There was deep symbolism there that dealt with the cleansing of our soul. The symbolism of holy water is not, in other words, physical. The physical is supposed to point to the spiritual. It's supposed to, even in the action, right, or in these kinds of actions, it's supposed to communicate that kind of cleansing. So the great question of the moment, then, it seems to me, is what is the meaning being conveyed by this symbolism? I think about philosopher Roger Scruton, who argued that one of the motivations of our secular culture is to escape from the eye of judgment. This is why, as we've talked about before, especially in modern art, there's a real crusade to destroy the beautiful. But one of the ways you escape from the eye of judgment is by blotting out the face, which we see in a lot of postmodern art now, and now we're starting to see out in the world. This is life imitating art. And as Jonathan Pageau has pointed out, veils often mark the transition point from one reality to another. Think about it. Think of the veil the high priest had to walk through in order to enter into the Holy of Holies. Right? Or the veil over Moses' face that Paul talks about, that must be removed for a Jew to transition from the old covenant into the new. Or a bride wearing a veil. Why does she wear the veil? I would bet, if you poll people that go to weddings, you say, why does she wear the veil? They have no idea the symbolism. Well, I don't know. Right? That's probably why people don't wear them anymore, because they don't know what the symbolic meaning of it is. But the bride wearing the veil, she transitions from one family to the next. The veil hides the identity until the transition is complete. So what is the transition we're making is the question right now, with these veils that we're being forced to wear. Is it just from sickness to health in a physical sense? Or is it something much deeper than that? The symbolism carries great meaning, a meaning which is hard to counteract just with words. But if we don't know what that meaning is, it makes us that much more susceptible. We just perform the ritual. I guess we'll wait to see how things turn out, is what many would say.